This chapter, if you go to like the last page, we have to be mapped out the entire chapter in a chart. But I don't know if you want to look at it because the preview is way a lot. There's a lot of racy stuff in this chapter.
Racy?
Race, oh yeah.
No, I saw it.
Yeah.
I heard something.
Yeah, you can.
Check the
This
check
is not.
the IDs
This
of everybody
is
on the
for
line.
adults. This class is for adults. Chapter 7 is for
I
adults.
gotta get my wife's permission.
She's not here. What happened?
Your schedule is kind of crazy.
Oh, okay.
She disliked it so much. She's now misnagdish.
Okay.
Nah, joke.
It's not an easy chapter to teach. That's why we follow the structure. We made a chart to see the structure of the chapter. But we're talking about, this chapter is really about klippus noga, a type of klippa that's most of the world, which is mobile. So this is it's klippa, so it obstructs divine. So as you find it, it's not the way things are supposed to be, but it's malleable. You can move it upwards. So that's the domain that we want to be in, but we want to be active there. In general, the whole idea of talking about like klippa and kedusha and so on, how it shifts things, is that Torah is not just telling you do this and don't do this. It's dealing with the reality. It's telling you, it's revealing to you what the world is really made of, and how what you're doing is affecting the world. So without that, you say, well, why do I do this? Because God says so. Why don't I do this? Because God says so. Or, it's all something about my subjective experience. Here we're finding, no, the stuff the world is made out of is affected by what you do with it. It's changed. You change the energies of the world around you by what you do with it. You can open that up. Look like in another space, like you came from boxing and it turned out to be Tanya. So.
I did do boxing.
Right just before this? Oh, you're coming from boxing?
No.
Oh, no, that's last night, wasn't it?
No, we did a boxing tonight.
Again tonight?
Yeah.
2 days in a row?
No, I'll tell you later.
Okay, fine, okay.
Tova cleaned his closet.
You had that boxing face.
I was in deep thought.
But
it's okay.
There are more people in here. Admit David Block. Okay. All right. So if you've just come online, I'm sure you got the PDF. You gave them the PDF online on the chat.
They have last PDF. I will quickly.
Yes, just send them.
Is everybody online on the WhatsApp? Because I can just drop it quickly in WhatsApp.
Is everybody online there on the WhatsApp? If we post the file to the WhatsApp, you'll get it? Or the cat's there? Okay. Larry, are you on the WhatsApp? David, you on the WhatsApp? Your mom's for sure on the WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. David and Larry. Okay, good. Okay, so let's look. Beginning of the chapter. We start there again. And we're describing all the things that are klippus noga. Because we already described the things that are completely tamic klippus that we don't want to get involved in at all. And now, what is klippus noga that we can deal with? So that's where we're starting. And we start the list. The first is the vitalizing animalistic stall within a Jew. And this is the first instance where it's actually called a nefesh abamis, an animalistic stall. Even though that's a fairly old term, I was looking at this up yesterday. When was the first time this term animalistic soul in a human being is used? I mean, it's often used describing souls of animals, but when is it used describing a soul within a human being? And it goes back to Rabbeinu Bachia, which is quite a long time ago. 12th century Spain, around that time. Well, this 14th century, which Rabbeinu Bar Kara Kemach is earlier than that. It's 11th century Spain. Okay, but the Nefesh Elokis, that's an interesting thing. Nobody called it the other soul, a divine soul. The earliest I could find was the Maharal of Prague. Everybody else calls it an intellectual soul, a rational soul. Other names for it, or a holy soul, whatever. The first instance I could find of somebody calling it a divine soul, a godly soul, was the Maharal of Prague at 16th century. But anyways, this animal soul, vitalistic. Sorry? Rabbeinu Bachya. Some call him Rabbeinu Bachaya. Bachya is an Arabic name. There's two Rabbeinu Bachyas. They're both in Spain. It gets very confusing. But okay, so the vitalizing, we call it two things. The vitalizer, remember, was a chart in chapter 6. It's both the same thing, the vitalizing soul, because it keeps you alive, and it's an animalistic soul, because its emotions are animal-like, its desires. Within a Jew, that's the soul that is from the side of Klippa and invested in your blood, as I mentioned earlier. So that is of Klippa's Noga. It can be elevated, it's malleable. The souls of kosher animals, birds and fish that are permissible for eating. The sustaining force in life of all inorganic substances. If it's inorganic, we were discussing that week. Is that last week? Is that the right term? Inorganic, okay? But that's I felt was the best way of describing it. Rocks, sand, water, air, gases, liquids, fire, energies, all those things. They're all, as well as all vegetation that are permissible for eating. What type of vegetation is not permissible for eating? Come on. And remember, what type of vegetation is not permissible for eating?
Seeds that are mixed.
That's one. Kalaim, that's kalaim. And there's one other. The first Shemitah, although you could eat those, you just can't take them privately. If you see crops that grew in Shemitah, you can go out and eat them, but you can't harvest them all and bring them into your house. You can go out and eat them.
The first 3 years?
The first 3 years of a fruit tree. Arla. Right. But otherwise, vegetables are kosher. It's interesting. I was in a discussion yesterday morning. Somebody mentioned seaweed. I said, what could be wrong with seaweed? Well, it could be, besides there being, some crustaceans in there. He said, well, what about krill? They're covered with krill. But krill are microscopic. He says, well, you can have a whole sheen of this stuff on top of that's all krill.
The krill is an animal, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's microscopic. So he said, well,
So
if
it's
you've got a few of them there, that's one thing. They're microscopic, but if you got a whole sheen of them there, they come. I never thought of that. Okay.
They're also in tuna fish.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I mean, plankton, but those are microscopic. He says, but maybe it's a problem when it's a whole sheen. Anyways, vegetables are generally kosher, but if they're not permissible for eating,
Protein.
they're not. Yeah. So I heard this from Beryl Levy. Beryl Levy was like the big man in kashrus in America at one time. He started the OK, but he was the one who really got the hashgacha thing happening. And he talked about one of his early discoveries, because there's a chemist and he's looking at chocolate. And he's saying, why does this chocolate have so much protein in it? Chocolate beans don't have protein. What's going on? Go to the factory. What are you putting in it? It's just chocolate. There's nothing here of protein in the chocolate. Go to the plantation. See, what are they doing? Oh, we don't add anything. He looks to see how the cocoa beans are drying in the sun. He says, why are the cocoa beans moving? So all those insects are getting crushed with the cocoa beans. That's when you realize you have to go there to Colombia and see the cocoa beans in order to give hashgacha on the chocolate. Okay, so but otherwise. Now we get to, so basically that's two categories. Your own soul, right? The souls of animals, the energy of foods. Okay, but then there's another category. So too, this clip of power is another kind of clothing of the animalistic soul. Remember, we said your animalistic soul has clothing. Its clothing are its thought, speech, and action. Right? So what's the divine soul has thought, speech, and action of mitzvahs, Torah and mitzvahs. The animalistic soul, whatever it can do, anything it can say, anything it can think, anything it can do, that's its clothing. So, but those go into categories. If it's thinking, saying, and doing things that it shouldn't be, then that is the tamei klip, the completely tamei klip. But if it's something that's permissible, right, how he describes it here, all permissible activities, spoken words, and articulate thoughts of matters of this world, activities that are not associated with anything forbidden, not at the root level, nor anything that branches out from there. So you could have something that's forbidden, that the Torah says it's forbidden, or it could be, well, since that's forbidden, this is also forbidden, that's forbidden. And then the sages make fences around that as well. That since that's forbidden, well, we're going to make this forbidden as well. You can't do work once it's dark, but you better stop before it's dark. You can't mix milk with meat. Don't mix milk with fowl, chicken also. So that becomes also that's no longer klipas noga, right? So we'll get to that later, okay? But all those things, we're talking about klipas noga is only when there's no don't do applied to it. So activities that are not associated with anything forbidden, not the root level, not anything that branches out from there, they don't violate any of the 365 prohibitive mitzvahs or anything that the Torah or the sages have extended from them. The only thing that makes them klippa is that they are not done for a higher purpose.
Oh, I was wondering why they were klippa.
They are simply bodily instincts, desires, and cravings. They could even be existential necessities required to keep your body alive. But they're still klippa because your intent is not for a higher purpose to serve God with your body. It's an interesting phrase, to serve God with your body. It doesn't say your intent is not for a higher purpose to feed your body so you can serve God, but to serve God with your body, because you need to serve God within a physical body, the way a body serves God. Like learning how to box, I guess. But it has to be a higher purpose. As long as it's not for a higher purpose, it remains klippa. But I need it to stay alive. So he says, staying alive is a function of the vitalizing animalistic soul, and it's klippas noga. Right? So these activities, speech and thought, can't be any higher than that. But I'm feeding a Jewish body. You know what? If you were feeding another Jew, then maybe it wouldn't be klippa because you have a higher purpose. But when you're feeding yourself, it remains klippa. Right? So find somebody else to feed. Then you're doing a nice mitzvah, right? Then the food becomes part of a mitzvah because you're feeding somebody else. But when you're feeding yourself, it's not. So best thing is, you feed him and he'll feed you.
So if you're doing it for a higher purpose, it's no longer klipa.
We'll see what happens to it then.
Okay.
It comes out that all the above forces, energy, souls, soul clothes, without exception, come through the second level of klippa and sitrachra. That's the fourth klippa, known as klippa snoga, the glimmering klippa. Yeah, I quoted here from this thing about serving God through this body of yours and so on. It's actually a halach in Shulchan Aruch. The Mishnah says, Kol ma'asacha yu l'shem shamayim. Whatever you do should be for the sake of heaven. What do you mean the sake of heaven? There's a higher purpose. Have a higher purpose to it. And then in Mishli, it says, B'chol d'rachecha de'ehu. In all your ways, you should know him. Is there a difference between the two? Is there a difference between all your deeds should be for the sake of heaven, or in all your ways you should know him? Is there a difference? So
if you don't know him, how can it be for the sake of him?
if you don't know him, you have to first know him. Okay, but you could say, I'll know him through learning Torah. But it's saying, no, in all your ways you should know him. So
Ways meaning everything you do?
Here, let me quote here. I have a quotation here from Shulchan Aruch. It goes through describing there how the way you sleep, the way you eat, everything that you do, even when you're socializing, it's all for a higher person. It concludes like this. In short, you see there at the bottom of the page, bottom of page 146. In short, you need to pay attention to your actions, think about them, weigh them with your mind. If something brings you closer to serving God, do it. If not, don't. Someone who lives like this is serving the Creator at all times. He's eating because when I eat, so that I can do mitzvahs and learn Torah. I'm talking to this person. Why? Because I might find out what he needs, and then I'll be able to help him. And we can work together. Something, whatever I'm doing, I'm doing it for a higher purpose. So here he's saying when you do something for a higher purpose, you're actually sanctifying that thing. It's not just something you're doing. Within Shulchan Aruch, you learn it. It means you're being a better person. Here, what Tanya is adding on is that not just you're being a better person. Whatever you're dealing with also gets elevated. The words you speak, the food you eat, the drinks you drink, they also become elevated, not just you. But nevertheless, there's still a difference between that. That's all, everything that you're doing is for the sake of heaven. In all your ways you should know him is much more direct. It's not I'm doing this for the sake of something else. In this thing itself, I'm knowing God. But there's one thing that you ask somebody, well, why do you go to work? Well, I go to work so I can earn money, so I can pay my kids' tuition. You know how much it costs to put a kid through a Jewish school, so I have to go to work. Right? That's okay. And I can give tzedakah, I can do all sorts of good things. I can have a kosher kitchen, kosher meat costs a lot. That's why I work. Or you can say, Ramon, we got a seat left for you with now we got the whole house filled, almost. So, or you can say, well, I go to work, let's say I'm an artist, and I know God through my art. I go to work because I'm a doctor. I deliver babies, and I witness miracles every day. That's why I go to work. In my work, I'm knowing it's not that I'm doing my work for the purpose of something else. The work itself became a way of knowing God.
But you're saying there's a difference between, or there's not a difference between doing something as a way of knowing God versus doing something for a higher purpose.
Yeah, the doing
are they the same thing?
Doing to know God
things?
is more direct. When I say I'm going to work in order that I should have the money to send my kids to a Jewish school or something like that. So the work itself is just a means to an end. Mm-hmm. It's giving you something that you can use. It's another step in between over here. Mm-hmm. Whereas in my work, I see miracles. My work gives me a window onto to miracles, amazing things, to the divine. Mm. My work itself is a way of knowing God. Like it says, the language of the Rambam when he's talking about the times of Mashiach. He says the whole world will know God. The only occupation of the entire world will be to know God. So there's two ways of reading that. You could read, well, all the occupations, we won't have any occupations, just the only occupation will be knowing God. Or you can say it means we'll still have the same occupations, but we won't be doing it for the money. We won't need that. They will be doing the same thing as a way of knowing God. So the guy who's teaching boxing, you ask him, why are you teaching boxing? There's nobody to defend yourself. It's a peaceful world. No, my boxing is a way of knowing God. And just about any occupation, he's a mathematician, he's an architect. Yeah, architecture is my way of knowing God. A farmer, it's a way of knowing God. The only one I can't imagine is the lawyer. I don't know what to do with that. Maybe the insurance salesman also, but everybody else, it'll be,
I was about to say that. I'm a
yes.
lawyer, and I was like, I
Oh,
can't.
I'm sorry.
I can't. No, no,
You'll
no.
find some way
I was about to say it myself. I was like, I can't imagine.
Okay, it depends which court you're in.
Maybe one day I'll find out. God willing.
Corporate law somehow. There's be some tremendous use. But you learn Talmud. You practical.
He makes money though, so that he can get stuff.
Well, so that's the Shem Shemaim. That's for the sake of heaven. But actually knowing God through it, you have a better Talmud mind. Talmud better by actually experiencing it. So there must be something there. It says Yordia Yahweh says in Tehillim, those who go deep into the sea. Yes, the Eisem Malachim b'Mayim Rabim, they do their work in the deep seas. Hema Ro Ma'aseh Hashem, they're the ones who see the works of God. Those who risk their lives to make a living, they see miracles all the time. So when you're in business, you rely on miracles all the time. You come to rely on miracles. So you're seeing God through the miracles. The person who's sitting in yeshiva, he doesn't get to see any because need any miracles. Guy goes on, does business, he's miserable. So then your business becomes a way of knowing God. So that's even more so. So it comes out that when you are doing everything l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, even more so to know God. But think of the term, you're doing l'shem shamayim, even though I write here for a higher purpose. Because for the sake of heaven sounds very strange in English, but it really works because for the sake, it's not just that you're doing this like to get to heaven or something, for the sake of something higher. Why do we say for the sake of heaven? Because you're making earth into heaven. You're taking the klippus noga of this world and making it into kedusha. So your workplace becomes a holy place. Like your kitchen, right? What's a kitchen? The Jewish kitchen. The Jewish kitchen is a kosher kitchen, right? And why do you have a kosher? So you can have a Shabbos meal and have guests over, and so everything that's happening there is kedusha. It's all for the sake of Shabbos, and the same with many other things. I'm sure the boxing is very holy. It's heavenly boxing. Okay, so let's go on. We're studying this Klippus Noga a little more. Klippus Noga is darkness with a touch of light. So this means Klippus Noga as it is found in our world. Our material world is called the world of action, and it is mostly filled with bad, not a complete bad, but almost. Right? The bad that is filled is rubu kukula ra, means it's mostly filled with bad, and that bad itself is not a complete bad, but it's almost a complete bad. So in this world, Klippus Noga has only a small amount of good, and that good is enmeshed within it. And it's from that small amount of that the good qualities of Jews' animalistic soul come from, explained above. In chapter 1, we talked about that a Jewish animalistic soul likes to help people, has rachmanas, has a sense of shame. And that's not from the divine soul, that's the animalistic soul. And the same thing with the righteous amongst the nations. So that's the small. So you have to know about this world. I think this is very crucial to know about this world, that it's mostly not good. And the good that's there is totally mixed up with bad. You're never going to find pure good in this world, anywhere. Ein tzaddik haaretz asher yaseh lo yacht yaseh tov kol yom yilech. There's no tzaddik. It doesn't have something will be off, some error, something. So then you're not disappointed when you know that. Somebody emailed me, he's so angry at Israel, so angry at Israel, so angry at Israel. What are you so angry about? Because after the Munich massacre, instead of bringing the terrorists to trial, Mossad went and shot them. Okay, they should have been brought to
Is there a
trial.
problem with
That's his problem.
That's the problem.
Okay, you're living in, realize where you are, guys. Okay, so the question is, so how does this happen? How does it get this? Okay, well, there's a big problem. We have to discuss how do you get klippa out of the divine? How does that happen? There's a whole discussion here of how that works. But anyways, since it combines both good and bad, this klippa is a kind of intermediate between the three entirely Tamei klippas and the realm and level of holiness. Because it's got both, right? To be an intermediate, to be the mediator between two parties, you have to have something of both. You can't be, say you're going to be the guy to talk between the cops and the robbers, right? You mean intermediate between them? You have to be able to understand both parties. It's an interesting thing about a judge who sits on a Jewish court, a dayan. Who can you appoint to a Jewish court? So one of the types of people that you cannot appoint is somebody who's very old. Why? Even if all the senses are there and everything. Why? Because somebody's going to come to court and he stole. Yes, why did you steal? I have a family to feed. And this guy hasn't had a family to feed in 40 years. He's not going to be a good judge. You know the story with Judge Brandeis? Justice Brandeis, when he was a city lawyer, not just what do you say, the small courts judge.
Small claims?
No, it wasn't small claims. It was like criminal law. He was just a police court lawyer, right? So at the beginning, so what happened? The guy comes into court, right? He stole from the store. How much was it worth? $10, was a lot of money during the Depression. So why did you steal? I have a family to feed. So Justice Brandeis thinks about it, says, "What? You still stole? No. Okay. So I'm fining you $10 for stealing, and I'm also fining everybody in this court $1 for living in a city where the only way a man can feed his family is by stealing." Yeah, so that's a Jewish judge, you see.
Is the question is, people know there anything to do with the sparks?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah. The Tamei clip is the completely bad clip is that the spark fell into them and became bad.
Became bad?
Became
or
bad.
I thought it just couldn't, it was so deeply embedded. It was
It's so deeply
irretrievable.
embedded, so it's basically the same thing. So inaccessible, it might as well be bad, right? Okay. And whereas in Klippus Noga, it falls there, but it's accessible. You could get it out of there. You could use it in the right way. But this doesn't necessarily want to go that way, but you could turn it around that way. So you don't want to leave it as is. That's the point. And it could also go down. So that's the thing. I'm trying to remember why I wrote this long piece down, but I did. Yeah, I wanted to give an example, an explanation of how Klippa could come to exist to begin with. And so I gave an example of a person who decides he wants to have a beautiful house overseeing an ocean view home. He comes up with the whole idea and all the plans. And once he starts actually constructing the house and getting into all the details of the house and building the plumbing and the wiring, the sewage. So why did I get into all this? Oh, because it's part of a big house. But most of what you're doing when you're building this big, beautiful house is not stuff that you're interested in. I just wanted the view over the ocean. Would have to get into all this stuff. I need a basement, and all this other stuff. Yeah. But that's not the real thing. So within the big picture, it's all good. So Klippa, as it is in the higher world, is actually good. It's in our world where you don't see the big picture, that it comes out as bad. Okay, so it's got some of the good in it, it's got some of the bad in it, so therefore it's an intermediate. That being so, Klippas Noga in some instances merges with the 3 Tamid Klippas, as stated in Eitz Chaim, 4049, beginning of chapter 4, citing the Zohar, look it up there. But in other instances, it merges into holiness by rising up to that realm and level. See, if to go down to the Klippa, it doesn't have to do much. It just merges with it, that's it. But to go up into holiness, it has to rise up into that realm and level of holiness. That occurs, when did it rise up? That occurs when the good enmeshed within the Klippas Noga is disentangled from the bad. Then, the good then dominates over the Klippa, rises to the level of holiness, and merges with it.
Merges with the Klippa?
We're talking about Kedusha, with holiness.
Okay.
When it rises up, the level of holiness and merges with it. So see, the first step is disentangle. You have to look at this thing and see if there's something good about it, there's something not good about it. I'm going to find the good in it. Once I find the good in it, then I can lift it up to holiness, and then it merges with holiness. So there's 2 or really 3 steps. You're falling asleep. How do I keep you awake? Splash water in your face. Okay, but this is exciting stuff because it's very instructive. The first thing is, where is the good in it? Usually at the first step, it's to kvetch about it. No. Don't kvetch about it. Right? We know it's mud, right? We know it's principally klippa. No, where is the good in it? Now that you've found the good in it, you can allow that good to dominate. And then you can lift it up to its place. But if you don't find the good in it, you can't do anything with it. So simply put, with your food, the food is klippas noga. What is the good in your food? Well, it has healthy energy for me that I can use. So what type of food are you going to buy? You're going to buy healthy food because that's the good stuff of it. The fact that it's easy to chew and swallow and taste yummy and so on, that may be helpful if it's telling you that it's healthy food, but it's because it's ultra-processed food. That's not good about it, right? So you can eat healthy food, okay? And you're going to look for what's good about it and let that dominate. The same thing whenever you're any interaction with any person. What is the good in this interaction? Any words that you're going to say, where is the good in these words? How can these words be good? You get involved in something, you're playing a game. Is there something I can learn from this game? There's some way of knowing God through this game. So in everything that I'm dealing with, I'm looking for the good in it. With the complete knowledge that most of it is not good. But there's got to be some good in it. And I've got to find that good, and I've got to make that good the main thing. And then I elevate it. That's a way of life. Fantastic way of life. So it's all about your intent in this thing. Your intention, your kavana becomes very important in life. Meaning that you can't lead a mindless life. Everything has to be, why am I doing this? Well, which was what it said in Shulchan Aruch. We quoted that from Shulchan Aruch. You always be thinking, well, why am I doing this? What's the purpose behind it? What is good about this? Sometimes it's, well, I need to relax. But you can relax doing something good also, something healthy. So go on here. The note over here. So Rabbi Shnezalman now describes 3 modalities, page 150, 3 modalities of clothing for the animalistic, 3 ways that she can invest herself into her thoughts, words, and her activities. One way transports her energy upward, another downward, and a third way permanently entraps it. So there's one way up and two ways down. Get that? One way up takes something up into Kedusha, into holiness. Two ways down, you can take something down, but it's still salvageable and you can still bring it back up again. Or you could take it down in a way that it's going to get stuck there. It's a trap. And then we're going to follow that with two exceptions at the end. For each kind of investment, he provides two examples. The first of each set involves consumption of food or drink, which is altering its status, the status of food or drink as well. Altogether, 8 instances discussed in the chapter. We've got a chart at the end. Okay, so let's start. The first instance. So upgrading the energy of Clippus Note. How are you going to make this happen? So here's an example. You can eat marbled beef and drink spiced wine. Get that?
Like you.
This is amazing. You would think that you'll start off, well, when you eat your food, eat it so you'll have energy. No, it's not. Marbled beef and spiced wine. Well, why are you eating it? Why are you drinking it? To expand your mind, opening to God's presence and to his Torah. As Rava, probably the most quoted sage in Tanya, says, wine and fine aromas are mind expanding. I looked this up. I wanted to know, is meat good for your mind? And I found, there's lots of tyrosine, and Tyrosine, tyrosine in meat. And tyrosine sharpens the mind. It's interesting. But, here, you read the stories here, down at the bottom of the page. It happened one day at the Academy of Narda that Rav Nachman was lecturing, and his student Rava kept prodding him. Right? Rava was the nudnik in the class. That's how he became so bright. Right? If you're not a nudnik, you don't challenge your teacher. You don't learn. You don't become Rava. Okay. Rava kept him prodding with question challenge. And Rav Nachman answered everything. But the next morning, Rav Nachman sought out Rava and told him, "Listen, I made a mistake. I was mistaken." He says, the reason I said what I said yesterday was because I had not yet eaten ox meat that day. Rav Nachman was apparently quite wealthy, and he ate ox meat every day, right? That day I hadn't eaten ox meat yet, so I made a mistake. Okay. On another occasion, Rav Nachman heard of a certain ruling of Shmuel, a great sage. Shmuel was an earlier sage, early generation. And he exclaimed, what an excellent ruling. Then he was told another ruling. Shmuel had also ruled that anyone who has drunk more than a revis, that's about 3 ounces of wine, should not rule on a case. To this he responded, that's not such an excellent ruling. Personally, if I haven't had at least a revis of wine, my mind's not clear. He's your guy, right? He's your man. Yeah? Okay. So Rav Nachman clearly enjoyed his meat and wine, but he didn't enjoy them for the sake of enjoyment. His enjoyment was a divine enjoyment. It had the divine purpose to gain a clearer understanding of God's Torah. Due to that intent, the meat and that wine, rather than pulling him down, were elevated immediately. Right? We're not saying that you drink the wine and then when you learn Torah, then, I'm learning Torah better because I drank the wine. Yeah, that's true. But since you drank the wine for that purpose, it became holy wine. Immediately. Because you drank it for the right purpose and you ate the meat for the right purpose. You were such you're such a hedonist, sitting there with your marbled beef and spiced wine. Can't you just have a glass of water with a piece of bread? No, you don't understand. This is mind expanding. I'm not eating it because yes, it does taste good. That's part of it. Maybe it's the taste that opens up my mind. But I'm enjoying it in order to open my mind. If I would have bread and water, my mind wouldn't be so open. I wouldn't be able to think in such an expansive way. It says there are 3 things that expand a person's mind. Elsewhere, it doesn't mention the meat. It says you live in a beautiful house with beautiful furniture and a beautiful wife. I guess a woman wants to learn Torah, she has to have a beautiful husband, I suppose. I don't know. But it opens up your mind. Think. So the Shalah says whenever you're learning, you should learn out of beautiful books that look beautiful, printed nicely, and learn it in a beautiful place. Have a beautiful wife around, it also helps, especially if she brings you a cup of never mind. So learn with her, learn with your wife. Okay. So these beautiful things, you could take the beautiful things. Well, I'm just into the beauty. I'm just into enjoyment of the marbled beef. That's all. I like wine. That's it. Then no, it's the opposite of kedusha. But enjoying it for the right purposes, you're elevating. Or you might eat that beef and drink that wine as a means to fulfill the mitzvah of enjoying Shabbos or Yom Tov. Same thing. Immediately, you sit down to a meal on Shabbos, all the food is holy. Because it's Shabbos food. And your enjoyment of it is holy. You have to enjoy the food on Shabbos. That's part of it. You can't sit there on Shabbos and say, I don't want to enjoy the food. I'm just eating it for the sake of Shabbos, but I'm not going to enjoy it. No, the mitzvah is to enjoy the food on Shabbos. And Yom Tov, even more so. So the Alter Rebbe himself couldn't taste food. Not because of COVID. He couldn't taste food. Why? He said, as soon as he went to the first time he went to his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mizrich, when he first heard Torah from him, he from that point on, he was in another world. He couldn't taste food because he had no connection to physical taste anymore. It just lifted him up so much.
That seems to be the opposite of what we're just saying.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Sounds like a COVID cover-up to me.
We all said it's opposite of everything. But so there was a how did it work? I heard the story in different ways, but I'll tell you one way I heard the story. There was a cook, a Jewish woman who was cooked in his kitchen. They hired her to cook. And her husband was a peddler. It's a trade of many Jews to be a peddler, but it's a terrible trade. You go from town to town. You spend a whole week going from town to town peddling your goods. You have to carry them on your back or whatever. Maybe you have a horse and wagon. And you come back home just for Shabbos. So he would come back home on Friday, right? And she would have the food, she'd be cooking the food. What's cooking? He's starving, starving from a whole week away from home. So she came up with, she saw the Rebbitzin taught her to make this beautiful tzimmes with carrots, and so it tasted fantastic. So he comes home and he says, whoa, what's this? Let me just taste a little bit. Taste a little more. By the time Shabbos comes in, there's nothing left. So what's she going to do? Well, I'll make more of it, I said, next Shabbos comes, you haven't had money more. That tzimmes here. It's all gone before Shabbos comes in. She goes and tells the Rebbitzin, what am I supposed to do? I made this beautiful dish. My husband eats it all before Shabbos. So the Rebbitzin mentions it to the Alter Rebbe. And he says, I so much envy him. I can't taste the food. And he's enjoying Shabbos even before it came in. So it's a strange thing. He didn't taste his food, but he writes that this is the way to elevate the food. And by enjoying it. He says you don't have to not enjoy the food, but you enjoy the food because it's opening up your mind. Or because it's Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shabbos and Yom Tov immediately, without doing anything, the food is holy. The rest of the week, you have to have the right intentions. Shabbos, it's Shabbos. I'm supposed to be enjoying the food. And then what you do is you take extra food for Shabbos, and then you eat the leftovers from Shabbos the rest of the week, so it's still holy food. Right? And when you buy food during the week, every time you buy food, this food is for Shabbos. And then the next day you buy other food. This food is for Shabbos. Yesterday's food I'm going to eat now. But you bought it for Shabbos, so it's holy food. There's ways around it. In such instances, you disentangle the good from the bad and the energies of this meat and wine. See, where's the good in it? The bad in it is, it just pulls me, I just want that, whenever I smell, I just want to eat it because like a savage. The good in it, it opens up my mind. Oh, So I'm going to enjoy, in the enjoyment of it, once you disentangle, in the enjoyment, in the food, there's the enjoyment of the food, and in the enjoyment of the food, there's a good type of enjoyment and not good type of enjoyment. So I'm going to take the good type of enjoyment, disentangle. By the way, the Arizal says that when you eat, you should always sit down. Before you eat anything, it's good for not gaining weight as well, by the way. Never eat without first sitting down. Sit down at a proper table, okay, and then you say a bracha, and then you're able to eat it mindfully for the right purpose. But when you eat, grabbing something and just putting it in your mouth, you can't really eat it mindfully. And then your intent when you're eating is, I'm going to take the good out of this food and leave behind the bad. Okay. So in such instances, you disentangle the good from the bad, and the end receives this meat and wine. They were originally channeled through Klippas Nugget. Now they rise up to God as a sacred offering. It's like you brought an offering on the altar in the base of Mikdash by enjoying this wine for the right purpose. So here's another example. This is not about eating, this is about speaking. You share some humor. You tell a joke. Why? To open up your mind and cheer up your heart so that you're open to God's presence, His Torah, and a connection with Him in prayer. Because all these things must be done cheerfully. Yeah. You have to be happy. So you tell a joke to be happy. Tell you the best thing when you're visiting somebody in the hospital, read a joke book before you come. The best thing you can do for a guy. I always come in if it's a lady there, you find some elderly lady lying in bed in the hospital looking miserable. He says, "What's a cute young chick like you doing the place?" Start laughing. Rabbi, that's not a way to speak. So humor. It says three things: open your mind and cheer up your heart. So you're open to God's presence. You're open to God's presence. His Torah. You can learn Torah better when you joke. And the connection with Him in prayer before davening. You see, that's the mistake they make here. They tell the joke after davening. You're supposed to tell the joke before davening. So tell them in the simcha. Okay. So he gives the example here. This is what Rava did. I told you, Rava is the most quoted one in Tanya. Rava did for his students. He would begin his lecture with something humorous, starting them off with a good laugh, opening their minds and hearts for the Torah study. So this thing of a rabbi always opening a sermon with a joke, it's an old tradition. But I think the tradition was to tell good jokes. That's the difference.
Dad jokes.
So Rava comes into the room and his students are sitting and, wow, I got into Rava's class. Right? And they're ready for something really deep. And when you sit in that situation, you're not able to learn. Because the first thing, there has to be a connection between you and your teacher. So what do? The Rabbi tells a joke. And now you can relate to the guy. Besides that, you're in a good mood. Now you're ready to learn. He wasn't the only one. In the Zohar, you have this mysterious character, Rabbi Menuna Saba. Very mysterious character. He does all sorts of miracles. He disappears. He's gone. Nobody knows where he is the next day. All sorts of miracles. And he teaches the deepest secrets of the Kabbalah and the Zohar. But before teaching, he said he would do a whole lesson of jokes, a whole lesson in humor. He'd give a lesson in humor. He was a fun guy, And then he was starting, and he says, because just like you can't appreciate light without darkness. Right? You want to show off a beautiful diamond and put it on black velvet. So he says you can't appreciate wisdom without some insanity first.
Guess that explains why 95% of comedy writers are Jews too, right?
A lot of them, yeah. Or imitating Jews, yeah. Bob Hope, his whole life was trying to imitate the Jews. He said,
You can't
what?
appreciate humor without insanity? Is that what you said?
No, I'll tell you something about the mind. Brilliant minds are minds that are at the laser's edge of insanity.
Yeah, it's a normal distribution layer. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's called a critical state. Something's in a critical state when it's just like at that tipping point, like an avalanche. A mountain that's just about to avalanche. Those sorts of states. So that's how the human brain works. The human brain works by visiting that edge of insanity. And that's why human beings are tremendous at generalizing, at taking an idea and relating it to something that seems totally disassociated. Machines are terrible at that. Terrible. The human mind will make these associations. And when we get tired, we're not so good at doing that anymore. So we go to sleep. And when we wake up, we're able to do it again. Dreaming helps a lot. In our dreams, we make all sorts of crazy associations. But that's really how the brain works and why it's such of enormous complexity. It should not be able to function. A device of such enormous complexity should not be able to function, except because it's at this critical state, bordering on insanity. So you see that the great minds are minds that need humor. That's what triggers them. That humor is insanity. Humor is about things that are impossible. It's ridiculous, right? So that brings you to that edge, and now you're able to think. So that's why you have to be besimcha, but a type of simcha that comes through humor. So they're important. This is not only for learning, for davening, just feeling God's presence. You have to have humor. So there's all sorts of other examples. Physical exercise can be l'shem shamayim, and not just that I'm keeping in shape so that I'll have the strength to learn Torah, but the physical exercise opens up my mind. I can think better. I got more oxygen. The blood is pumping. Okay, I can think better. There's another way of looking at it.
What's that state called? For a certain 40 minutes of exercise.
It's a zone.
There's a more
It has to be
scientific
40
thing for
minutes. 40 minutes.
maybe 30 years ago. That's what the technology said.
I don't get 10 minutes at that one. Music. So I remember the Rebbe once asked a question. So if Rebbe told a joke, why is it that a Rebbe, before he starts speaking Chassidus, whatever, doesn't tell a joke? Because we sing. We should do this. When in California, I always did it because Californians are into it. I don't know about people in Atlanta. But in California, every time before a class, we sang. And put everybody in the right state. Now we can. So that's why when the Rebbe would teach Torah, would be singing. You sing, okay, now we can learn. And be singing in between, and l'chaim and so on. So.
What was the answer to why a Rebbe doesn't tell a joke?
Because we sing instead of singing. The singing does the same.
Okay.
Singing part is the same.
You gave a class once when you sang.
I did once. We should do it. But when you have it for banging,
Here with my husband.
you put food there on the table and you sing. It has to be some humor as well, and then you're able to do it. And the only way to convince somebody that you are right and they are wrong is by feeding them. Did you know that? If you want to win an argument with somebody, you want to convince them of somebody, you want to convince anybody of anything, they prove it from the Talmud, right? That the only way of really convincing somebody of somebody is by eating with them. That's why businessmen do lunch, right? You want to convince somebody of something, it's going to be over a meal.
Why is that?
Unless they refuse the food you make. if they're a teenager.
Some it says Godol Lagimish Makarevis. When people drink and eat together, it brings them closer together.
Why?
I don't know. I'm not sure why, but it brings them closer together. That's why we do lunch.
No,
That's
no,
it.
I mean,
That's when shidduchs,
Shidduchim,
eat
yeah.
together
Eat
until
together.
the like third date or something.
Eat together. Okay. I'm trying to remember the instance. There was the king of was Achav was the king of the northern kingdom of Israel, and the king of Yehuda was, I can't remember, but he was a good king. So Achav, he went north to Achav. Achav wanted to talk with him. Talked to what they wanted to make war with Aram. Aram was giving him a lot of trouble, so he's got to fight a war with Aram. But Aram is not bothering the king of Yehuda of the south at all. But Achav can't fight him alone, so he needs a king from the south. So he convinces him. They eat together, and he convinces him. So somebody says, well, he couldn't have eaten Achav's food. Achav is a wicked man, right? He worships idols. How can you trust his shechita? Must be that he didn't eat from his shechita. So we said, no, he did. He must have eaten from the shechita, and that's proof that you can eat from the shechita of somebody who worships idols. How do you know? Because he must have eaten them. How do you know he ate with them? Because Achav convinced him. If you convinced him, they must have eaten together. So there you see. So food, if you want to convince somebody that's with food, you want to convince them to keep Torah mitzvahs, it's through a Shabbos meal. It works. I know the trick. So, okay. So, what else? I had some other notes in here about other ways of, eating and drinking together can be a great thing, but it brings people together. We looked and looked for stories, and many stories of people who only ate for the sake of heaven. And there was this one story, but we couldn't find the version that we wanted. So, there was a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov who wanted to, Rebbe, teach me how to eat for the sake of heaven. The Rebbe said, go to such and such a town, find such and such a guy, ask to stay there for a few days, you'll see. So he goes, this guy is enormous. Enormous. And he comes home, and he eats and eats and eats. Right? Then in those days you had 2 meals, morning and evening. This guy eats and eats and eats. Just watching. Well, where's the eating for the sake of heaven? Watching and trying to see what's special about this guy. You can't see anything. He just eats a lot of food. So he has someone. He finally says to me, the Holy Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, sent me here to learn how to eat for the sake of heaven. I don't see eating for the sake of heaven, but tell me, why do you eat so much? So Matt says, this is the different stories over there. My father was one of the Anusim, hiding from the Spanish Inquisition. And when they finally found him out, right, they tortured him, bitter torture, and burned him. And the way I heard the story is like, I saw my father just like he's just gone like that, no poof, because he was so skinny. So I said, when they get me, you're not going to burn out so fast. I ain't gonna be so easy to burn me. So every moment that he's eating like so he can die a Jewish death. It's not going to go so fast.
So here the father lived.
Right. How does it go? Kidnappers don't take heavy people. Eat. That's mein Kind. That's a good reason. Okay, so he's eating. All of his eating is for the sake of heaven. Actually, I was in Holland. I did a tour speaking different places, different countries in Europe. And I was in Germany, I was in Vienna. The 2 places in the world where I felt like the Holocaust just happened yesterday were Vienna and Amsterdam. In Vienna, because you go to the Jewish quarter, right next to downtown is the Jewish quarter, and there you see this is Viktor Frankl's office. This is Adler's office.
Wow.
You see, it's the Jewish quarter. And what's going on over here? They're not here. This used to be the jewel of Europe, Vienna. But it's not anymore because the Jews are not here.
Why Amsterdam?
Amsterdam, because the Jews there talk and act as though it just happened yesterday. First of all, you walk into any shul and immediately there's a Holocaust exhibit as soon as you walk in. And the young people there that I met, they're all into this fitness thing and being big and strong. Like they're not going to take us away so easy this time. Young people, that's the way they talk. As though it just happened yesterday. Okay, so that's, I'm saying that they're exercising whatever their fitness is to be a Jew. That's part of it. So all of these things can be done in a higher way. So here's the diagram for elevating Klippas Noga. We're very proud of our diagrams. They are minimalist, and we argued for a long time over how to do it. So this is the Klippas Noga. So you see that middle level, the top level, the white level, that's obviously Kedusha. Middle level is Klippas Noga, and down there you have the Tamek. And you see in this thing of Klippas Noga, there's a little spark there. That's the spark of good inside it. So the first thing is that spark of good starts shining. You discovered it. You found it. You allowed it to dominate. It shines, and now you can see it's moving upward. See the upward movement there? And now it merges into Kedusha and becomes part of Kedusha. That's what you want to do with this. No, here's another story. Pinchas writes this. So Pinchas writes this was a brilliant young man from a wealthy family in Sklov, which was close to Vilna. And he was it's a whole story with the Pinchas writes. That's why he's called Pinchas writes this. His name wasn't Reitzes. I can't remember his name right now, but it wasn't Reitzes, but they called him Pinchas Reitzes. Reitzes was his mother-in-law. His mother-in-law. What happened is her husband was Pinchas's father. No, not her husband. Pinchas's father was the Rav of Shklov, and a very respected man in Shklov. His wife's mother was a widower who was also very wealthy. And the Alter Rebbe came to town. At the time, he himself was a young man and had a debate with all the scholars of Chachamim of Shklov, which was considered like these are the most brilliant in Lithuania. And they posed questions, he was able to answer all of them. He posed questions, none of them could answer. And Reitzes is sitting up there in the women's gallery watching this whole thing. And she said, anybody who goes to study this by this man gets all of my wealth. And he took her up on it. Against his father's wishes, completely against his father, who was one of those who the Rebbe beat in debate, was completely against this. He went and he started, and he got, and he gave the wealth to the Alter Rebbe, which probably most of went to Eretz Yisrael, was what Alter Rebbe was sending wealth because he didn't use it. And then one time he's still a wealthy businessman, run his own wealth. He's built himself a large brick house. So in Russia, this is Belarus at the time, brick house was like you're wealthy. That's a very showy to have a brick house. Houses of wood. He built a brick house. I actually looked it up to see. Show me a brick house in Lithuania at the time. So it was rare. It says it rare. So the Alter Rebbe says to him, Pinchas, why do you need a brick house? So Pinchas says, really, Rebbe, I promise you, every brick I laid, I cried. I said, why does Pinchas need us a brick house? Why do I have to do this? But because I have a brick house, when there's going to be a community meeting, they'll say, we'll do it in Pinchas's house. Since it's in my house, how did he say? The Malamed, the simple Jew, whoever it is, will benefit because I'll be able to say, we should be paying him more. And they'll listen to me. So he said, you're right. good to have a brick house. So his house was l'shem shemaim. Had a beautiful house. So l'shem shemaim. That was the bracha we had when we got married from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said your house should be a vase. V'ad hachachamim should be a place where people come to meet. We're still trying. Nobody wants to have meetings there. But that's making your house warm. Okay, so next week we get into now how to downgrade. You learned how to upgrade, how to downgrade, because no, it won't be next week, because next week is, I don't know, what is next week? Is it a problem next week?
No.
No, it's not a problem.
Well,
Thursdays are okay.
Fast
Tuesday, Wednesday.
But Thursday's a fast, isn't
Thursday's a fast day.
But that's over.
That's some Gedalia.
We should skip it. I have a board meeting. So.
Okay, we'll let the Ari Solis decide. Let me know.
it? Okay, let
And the
us
next
know
week's
on the
Yom Kippur
WhatsApp.
after that. The next sounds like we're going to be waiting till after Sukkot for the next class. So, but you can take this home and read the whole thing. Who needs me? Thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you
Lobby
very
Rabbi
much.
Solich.
Don't have to worry, everybody.
Shana.
Shana Tova.